Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, commissioners. I call this meeting to order on November 9th, 2022. The time now is 1:06 p.m. My name is Harry Spikes. I am the chairman of the Commission for Historical and Agricultural Preservation. Before I begin, I would like to, starting from my left, allow everyone to introduce themselves.
Eric Holcomb, Director of CHAP.
John Bullock, City Council Representative to CHAP.
Gary Rodwell, representing the Coppin Heights Community Development Corporation and Baltimore area.
Kate Edwards, representing the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development.
Nicole Battle, representing Affordable Housing Developers.
Myra Mendeleev, Commissioner.
Garrett Power, representing the Baltimore Historical Society.
Ann Powell, Greater Baltimore Commission.
Catherine Good, Commissioner.
Peter Morrow, Commissioner.
Valdan, Commissioner.
Jill Dennis, representing Residential Real Estate.
Sarah Langmead, Commissioner.
Stacey Montgomery, CHAP staff.
Orange is like CHAP staff.
Eddie Leon, CHAP staff. Howard Charlie, CHAP staff. Anthony Stewart, CHAP staff.
Thank you all. And welcome to all in the audience who are also in attendance with us today as well. The mission of CHAP is to enhance and promote the cultural and economy of Baltimore through the preservation of buildings, structures, sites, and neighborhoods that have aesthetic, historic, and architectural value. The goals. CHAP's goals include preserving historic architecture and monuments, reclaiming broken neighborhoods, preventing demolition by neglect, and integrating our city's past into its future. We have just a few housekeeping rules. If you have not signed in, please feel free to sign in. We also have an agenda outside as well. Feel free to get that as well. If you wanted to speak, there is a sheet outside that allows you to give your name and what, of course, item on the agenda you would like to speak on. If you have not put your name down to speak, you still have the opportunity to do that as we go through our order of the agenda. But just want to let you know that. Finally, when you get up and speak, please give your full name for the record. We do not want to mispronunciate your name. I usually put my gavel up. We give people 2 to 3 minutes. Once you put my gavel up, that means you've got about 30 seconds left to speak. As I say all the time in the hearing, there's very few times I've had to knock the gavel down and tell somebody to chill out, but that normally doesn't happen. But I just want to share that with you when you see this. At this point, I would like to go through the minutes. I would like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that need to be made? Okay, thank you. I would like to make a motion to adapt the minutes. Due process and review procedures. CHAP reviews applications in conjunction with the building permit process of the permit section of the Department of Housing and Community Development. If a building permit application is filed prior to historic design review, the application is placed on hold pending completion of the CHAP review process. The review process is completed by issuing an authorization to proceed. The historic design review process is in addition to other applicable laws and regulations and does not diminish the force of urban renewal plans, building codes, zoning codes, etc. It is the applicant's responsibility to comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and codes. Proposed projects are reviewed prior to issuing a building permit. Applicants must comply with the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines in planning and executing their projects. Design review considers the proposed work taking into consideration the historical and architectural character of the structure and of the immediate area. Applicants will need to clearly explain how their project complies with the design guidelines. Minor projects. In order to expedite the application process, the Commission has delegated review authority to the Executive Director for cases involving minor work. Minor work project must not significantly change the overall appearance and remove the significant undamaged historic fabric. All minor work must clearly meet the design guide projects. Major projects. Major projects may change the overall character, appearance, and integrity of the structure. Substantial building alterations, demolitions, additions, and new construction are considered major projects and are reviewed at a public hearing. Interested parties should request a pre-development meeting in the planning department to begin the review process. An electronic version of all materials must be submitted to the CHAP staff at least 25 calendar days prior to the public hearing date. If the application is complete, the project shall be scheduled for a public hearing. Finally, CHAP hearings. At the public hearing, CHAP staff presents recommendations to the commission regarding the project. Following the staff presentation, the applicant may make a presentation to the commission. Interested parties, including neighborhood associations, have the opportunity to provide public testimony. Following testimony, the commission renders a decision on the application at the public hearing. Persons aggrieved by the decision of the commission may seek judicial and appellate review in accordance with Baltimore City Code. After an authorization to proceed is issued, the applicant may obtain a building permit. The commission's process is impartial, and staff comments are evidence that assist the commission in rendering decisions. Let us begin. Commissioners, as you know, we have a consent agenda. On our consent agenda, we have Parks Heights National Register nomination. Do I have make a motion to have a consent agenda for this to be, to move forward? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Commissioners. First on our agenda is, Eddie, thank you. First on our agenda is CC Bill 220287, Real Estate Practice Disclosure, Historic Districts. Request, review, and respond. Applicant, City Council, staff, Stacy Montgomery, and Eric Holcomb.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So yes, we have City Council Bill 22-0287, Real Estate Practices, Disclosures, Historic Districts. The petitioners are multiple members of the City Council at the request of CHAP, and I, Stacy Montgomery, am the staff for this. So a brief overview of this. Here's the map of the existing CHAP district. So there are nearly 15,000 properties located within 38 Baltimore City historic districts. All of these properties have to obtain approval from CHAP for exterior work. As you know, that includes everything from like window replacement, roof replacement, construction of additions, all these things that come before the commission, and minor work that comes before the staff. If the work is compliant, CHAP staff will issue an authorization to proceed, whether that is after a commission approval or staff level approval. However, when exterior work is completed without that CHAP approval, a property owner is issued a housing violation. And that can come with associated fines, court time, that sort of thing. They can have a stop work notice, and it generally holds up a property and a project. So if a property owner is unaware that they've purchased a property within a historic district and they undertake work without coming to CHAP, they are often very unhappy to learn on the back end when they're issued a violation, and then maybe find out that the work that they did, like window replacement that with windows that don't meet the CHAP design guidelines, that sort of thing, it adds a lot of cost and expense, owner frustration. They may end up with a bad taste in their mouth about CHAP, about the city, about their neighborhood. It just is generally a bad experience for everyone all around. So this bill aims to kind of find one way to address that by putting this disclosure into real estate documents. And there are other examples of this in other jurisdictions. Close to Baltimore City is Montgomery County, which uses a similar type of document. So City Council Bill 22-0287 was introduced on October 3rd into the City Council. And that proposal is it was introduced for the purpose of requiring certain disclosures in order to sell a property that's located in a historic district, and it also provides for certain penalties. The legislation in the proposed disclosure would not only call out that a property is within a historic district, but the legislation also includes some information on what it means to be in a historic district. And there's some relevant excerpts from Section 6 of the Baltimore City Code in that legislation. And so the bill asks that a potential buyer, is notified that the property is within a historic district upon or before the creation of a contract between property owners, a buyer and a seller. So what are some of the benefits of this bill? First, the legislation will require that the seller disclose to a buyer, like I said, before or upon entering into a contract, that a property is located within a historic district. The legislation includes text for this disclosure that would be included in the real estate contract. And the disclosure would notify the buyer that the exterior work of their property requires review and approval by CHAP prior to undertaking work. The goal of this is to curtail the number of property owners in our historic districts that do work on their property without knowing that they are required to come to CHAP, and that, therefore curtailing things like violations, fines, and all of the various negative things that come along with that process. It would also substantially potentially reduce some staff and commission time and hearing when folks do that work, when they come to appeal whether they can keep the work that they did because they didn't know. There's a lot of staff and commission time, as you know, spent on that process as well. So allow us to kind of focus on the positive aspects of things. And then the disclosure would help buyers who are looking at different properties weigh the impact of the designation on their decision to buy a property. A property owner may say, I don't want to go through this every time I need to do something on the exterior, or they might think that it's a really great thing. And so then they'll be able to make that decision ahead of time, and that disclosure is going to help with that. And then the other thing is, there was one other piece, which is that there are also over 200 Baltimore City landmarks, and staff suggestion is to also make this disclosure available to incorporate those properties as well. Because while historic districts generally have neighborhood associations that might notify a buyer, the landmarks are often not in that condition, so this might help those property owners also. They have to go through the same process, and it might help them as well. So in terms of neighborhood comments, CHAP staff reached out to as many of the Architectural Review Committee chair people as we possibly could, and got comments. We got a lot of emails of people being very excited about this, but we did get letters of support from Fulton Hill, Federal Hill, Ashburton, Reservoir Hill, which has 2 CHAP districts in it, and also a separate letter from the Upper Utah-Madison Neighborhood Association, which is in Reservoir Hill. So everybody very excited, very much in support of this legislation. And so the staff recommendation is to submit a report recommending approval of the bill to the City Council with an amendment to include Baltimore City landmarks also in the disclosure process. And that's all. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right, commissioners, before we go to public comment, any comments? Okay. We have one person for public comment. The real Johns Hopkins.
Thank you, Commissioners. Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage. I just very briefly wanted to share, we worked on this issue nearly 20 years ago. I know, Eric's nodding. The problems were the same as Stacy outlined. People would get dragged into CHAP after replacing their windows, or if you were a prior mayor, after replacing your door without getting permission. And then the reaction was always the same. I didn't know I had to come. And the thing was, that was almost always true. They didn't know. So this is an enormous step forward Back then, we were not able to skin the cat, if you will, because we didn't have the technology. There was a CHAP database, but it wasn't complete and it didn't work well with other databases. So we went with the partner with the Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors and couldn't figure out how to get that information out. The state had a database, but it didn't talk to the city's database, so we couldn't get that. But today, now we have got the technology. You can go up on City View and find whether your property is a designated CHAP district. Anybody can. So we've got the technology to tackle the problem that's at least 20 years old. And so I add my voice, Baltimore Heritage's voice, in support. Thank you. Oh, I just have to share one other thing. Where's Eddie? Is Eddie? So back then, when somebody would say, hey, is my house in a CHAP district? Those of us out on the street would say, we have one answer for you. Call Eddie Leon, and he'll get out the maps, and he'll tell you whether your house is in a CHAP district. That was the data era we were in. All right, thank you.
Johns, thank you so much. Eddie, thank you, Eddie. And Stacy, thank you for the presentation. Commissioners, we have in front of us the recommendation. Staff recommends submitting a report recommending approval of the bill and recommends an amendment to include Baltimore City landmark in the disclosure process for CC Bill 220287, entitled the Real Estate Practices Disclosure Historic Districts. Do I have someone who'd like to make that motion and move forward?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you.
And the second was Peter?
I saw Peter and Jill, so
It's quick.
it's fine, yeah. Thank you all.
I mean, I could put Jill down too.
Yeah, we can do choice. Thank you, commissioners. Yes, Peter and Jill, thank you, sir. Next on our agenda, we have 517 South Broadway, Fells Point Historic District. The request is to construct a 5-story building with full lot coverage. The owner, I hope I don't pronounce this wrong, Jason Development, and the staff who will be giving the presentation today is Mr. Eddie Leon. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. We have a new review to construct a 5-story apartment building with a full lot coverage at 517 South Broadway. This is the site as it presently exists as an open air lot where previously a grocery store stood on the site. It burned down many years ago and unfortunately was lost to that fire. Subsequently, it's sat dormant for well more than a decade. Recently, the CHAP Commission looked in 2021 in September to the current owner of record and looked at the possibility how the site could be reused. It was looked at and approved by June of this year before the commission for final design for the construction of a residential commercial building with a large rear parking lot. This was approved by the commission and that motion continues to stand. The proposal is here as last seen before the commission. This is before the recommendations were made by the commission. Therefore, the applicants, Chasen Development, has a contract with the current owner, Billy Reuter, and wish to incorporate the previously approved design as reviewed by the commission and look at expanding the residential portion of the building to cover the full lot of the site up to Register Street in the rear and Alley Street. CHAP staff applied Preservation Guidelines 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 in review of this project. As we see here in the first top slide is the previously approved commission-approved project, a residential and commercial structure with a large rear parking lot. The applicants are proposing to incorporate a good portion of that design, and in the bottom you can see the additional residential units that would occupy the site and abut directly to Register Street. On the south edge is a breezeway that will allow access to the interior courtyard as a secondary means of egress, as well as for things such as trash removal and other things. All the units are basically accessed internally. They're not accessed on the Register Street side. And looking at 2.1 guiding principles, it incorporates the previously approved South Broadway facade and residential massing. The overall design is contemporary, will continue using the same materials. The design of the front elevation will not be substantially altered. It will be designed to comply and tweak in accordance to the commission motion. The perceived height of the rear site as viewed along Register Street will be similar to that of other alley houses. It will be 2 stories with a sloping roof. It does not match any exact historic style, so it will stand out as a product of its own time. As we see here in the slide, looking from the north, looking south, the dark mass is the more or less the previously approved design, and the light gray leading down with the long sloping roof and dormers to the lower 2-story height side on Register Street shows how the design addresses reducing down to a scale that meets the surrounding portion of Register Street. This view shows again the massing looking north of the previously approved site, the new mass of the rear, center, and the sloped area that leads to Register Street, and a little bit of where the breezeway is located on the south side. 2.2 site design. It will follow the same property line setbacks as the adjacent alley houses. It will be built up to the sidewalk. There will be a rear entry gap breezeway, and they will have the same orientation as those buildings facing South Register Street. Here's a view showing as the concept of the plan of how the buildings on Register Street side would interact with the existing housing, and we feel this is quite compatible. Again, looking at the north view and the surrounding structures on South Register Street. 2.3 scale and form. The rear section has a scale and regular form of the other mid-block buildings in the area. The new rear proposal will follow a similar height and sloped roof style other similar alley row houses in Fells Point. The massing will complement and conceal the greater building mass found at the center of the site. The heights being proposed are similar to those surrounding the site. Roof lines of the majority of the proposal are flat with the exception of the rear elongated slope. Here we have a cross section showing a line of sight view on Register Street. You'll notice on the top right the angle by which a typical person, passerby, would be able to not see, hopefully, the new center mass addition to the site. And then below we have an interior side elevation of the courtyard and breezeway area that would be found on the, leading to Register Street. The Fells Point Design Review Committee reviewed the proposal. They have the minutes provided in the on the WIC site. CHAP staff concurs with their findings, and they have given a favorable approval and support for the project. Applicants proposing our analysis, the building fills the entire site with an open common space as access to the building from the front and rear. The applicants proposed using a majority of the previous design front South Broadway elevation. The proposed additional mass is concealed by the other surrounding buildings and will have no adverse effect to the character of the block or the district. Both staff and DRC have noted that some additional attention to the rhythm and fenestration openings along the South Register Street elevation can be modified. The applicants, upon hearing the recommendations of DRC and the staff during the process, provided this rendering where they will do that. In fact, providing a false door entry along South Register Street that is non-operable, that will convey the individual rhythm of a row house structures along Register Street. They did this on a similar project at 1517 Eastern Avenue, and commission approved in that case the same kind of presentation. Staff recommends concept approval, height, massing, and scale. Staff recommends that the applicants incorporate similar fenestration treatment that gave the impression of door entries as used previously on their project along South Dallas Street, 1517 Eastern Avenue project. Thank you, Commissioners.
Eddie, thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioners, before we go to public comment, do we have any questions for Eddie? Okay. So on our paper, we have 4 individuals who signed in. All of them in support of the project, but we only have one person that said they want to testify. And the person we have is Nate Preto. Thank you, Preto. Forgive me. And for the record, when you get up there, mention your name one more time, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Nate Preto. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Chasen Companies. We are a real estate developer based out of Fells Point. And with this project, we are looking to continue our investment not only throughout Fells Point, but particularly on the Broadway corridor. We have 2 other mixed-use multifamily buildings onto the block north and the block south of this under construction at this time. And Mr. Leon's staff report was pretty thorough, but I would add in just a couple things and then open up for any questions. We also have the project architect here who'd be able to answer any questions. A couple notes. Number one, this project complies with the zoning regulations entirely in terms of density, height, off-street parking, setbacks. And the second, you go back to the Alley Street, the Register Street plans. The previous proposal had a surface parking lot there, which is fine, but we've the Chasen Company's taken a particular interest in alley streets, and there are 3 or 4 hearings in front of this commission where the project a few blocks away at 1517 Eastern Avenue, taking the lessons that we learned ultimately from that approval, and apply them here. And we think we were successful in that, evidenced by the Design Review Committee's comments. I believe they say they expressed appreciation for the 2-story drop down along Register Street, and to get that from the Design Review Committee is something that we are proud of. They're a tough group, and we enjoy working with them. And so, other than that, really just happy to answer any questions, or myself or the rest of the team.
Mr. Nate, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Nate? Okay.
Thank you.
Nate, thank you, sir. Eddie, if you take us, appreciate it. Commissioners, what we have as a recommendation for 517 South Broadway Street, Fells Point, concept approval of height, mass, and scale. Staff recommends that the applicants incorporate similar fenestration, am I pronouncing that right, everyone? Treatment that gave the impression of door entries as used previously on their project along South Dallas Street, 1517 Eastern Avenue project. Do I have a motion to move this project forward? What's that? Oh, forgive me, y'all. Forgive me. Do we have any discussion? Forgive me. Go right ahead.
Okay, so my only thing is we saw this previously on the front facade. We just had a couple comments that we're going back to review and look at with staff. So I would suggest that we just add something that says that to refer back to the previous hearing and recommendations for the front facade, because we don't really need to revisit that since we've previously discussed that. We really only need to focus on the back. So I just wanted to make that note.
Any other comments?
Yeah, so I can't, I keep going back trying to find notes on I don't, whatever, approve it. Talking about Eastern Avenue project isn't relevant to me, other than the fact that we did work with you to get a scale that transitioned from Eastern to Dallas. The issue of doors, I don't remember, or nor do I have in my notes, so I kind of want to put that over in a parking lot maybe, and talk about the Register Street facade and how does the commission feel about this kind of look. So my understanding is all these doors are faults that were, that it's kind of a revisionist history, creating an infill piece that's designed to look like a series of alley houses, presumably, I mean, in its massing, I guess it's, kind of historically referential. I just wanted us to talk about, like, do we really think that's the right move? Is it, how do we feel about it? That's all.
Well, and I think our understanding, if we're correct, Eddie, is that basically the kind of infill door piece would be like a window or something like that.
An elongated window that's non-operable.
And, presumably, if this is massing and scale, we'll see more detail on that again
If the commission wishes.
before final approval, correct?
Correct. If the commission wishes to turn to the full commission for review, that's fine. Or if you wish to remand it back to staff.
I just have a comment, kind of continuing what Commissioner Powell was talking about. Like, I think it's, because there's a case or a precedent that was made about the false door, I think it's unfortunate, but.
I don't even, I was on the commission, I have notes, I don't even remember that.
Okay.
So like, I'm like, until I like went back and looked, I wouldn't assume, I wouldn't presume that that was the precedent that was intended to be set.
Got it, understood. But it was, would sound like something similar might have happened, whether it was discussed or approved or so forth. But I think I think it's commendable that the applicants provided a proposal that's trying to react to the historic condition of that block. But I think there's something to be said about going all the way or going 90% of the way. And I think I don't know if there's a question or a consideration to make those actually operable, that it becomes something that is that there's accountability for that facade now. Otherwise, it's going to be the butt of the building, and that now that whole block that it suggests 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 could have been 6 single-family townhomes again, maybe, let's say, that would have accountability of their front door, will now have that dimension of facade that won't have that anymore. And across the street, it's that same series of homes. And so I think I don't know, I'd love to hear the rest of the commission and staff to say that whether in the guidelines you have anything to react or comment or deliberate towards that. But I think as an urban condition, because Register is a primary street to some, it's maybe not primary to, let's say, a Fleet Street or a Broadway, but it is a primary street to this block, that you consider the urban condition, and particularly a big swath of area that now doesn't have the accountability. And then I wish that we could erase the memory of the former project, and that the applicant would at least consider making that operable and making it accessible, that it becomes taking it to the last 10% and taking it all the way, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead,
chime
Peter.
in. As
Go
far
ahead.
as height, massing, and scale, I think it looks great. It really infills that block. It's 1,000% better than a surface parking lot. Second, exactly what Kapow was saying. Looking at the floor plans, those all seem to be individual units fronting onto that street. Why not have them enter off the street rather than the hallway, or maybe provide 2 entrances? But that's something that could be looked at. I think your instinct on trying to activate that space is absolutely right. But overall, I think as far as height and massing, it looks really good.
Thank you both. Commissioners, any other commissioners who would like to comment?
Yeah, I would agree. I think height and massing is good, bringing it back down to the scale of the alley house. I don't mind it kind of being a replicated infill, because it is a contemporary infill, and so that's going to be pretty clear. I think it would be great if we could make those back kind of window door-esque things operable, but the purpose of this hearing is height, massing, and scale. I think that that's a detail level that we can look at kind of with the next round of things when we have more detail. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Go right ahead, Nicole.
Microphone.
Maybe we can can we ask the question why you don't have them operable?
Commissioner, thank you. So at this point, I share the sentiment that it would be better to have those operable, and that's something from your property management, leasing, and just a function of the building that, if we can find a way that, for the building to function as we manage any of our buildings and have those operable and have them, safe and secure, for our tenants, we would prefer to have them operable as well. I cannot commit to that today, but, I think that, not to speak for the rest of the Chasen team, but we share, that opinion, and I think we'll do everything we can to ultimately have, front doors for those, 5 or 6 units along Register Street. This is something we discussed with the Design Review Committee, and being able to activate Register Street would be wonderful. When it comes to height, mass, and scale, I agree this is a little bit different, but we don't disagree, and we're hoping to be able to have those operable doors. Oh, and just also, if I may, Commissioner Powell, I think when you talked about the precedent from Eastern Avenue, I just wanted to be clear. I was talking about how the sort of the height and scale of the alley streets and not the doors. But I think Justin Cito is here. Commissioner, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I think he had a little bit of information to address one of the previous questions, if you'd like. If not, we're...
Commissioner Powell, would you like him to come forward? No, him to come forward. Come right up.
It was me.
Powell, would you like to?
He was.
Oh,
That's why he's looking at me.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
like-
Forgive me. For the record, please, give your full name.
Justin Cito. Yes, the previous project at 1517 Easton, when we turned the corner onto Dallas Street, we brought the scale of the building down when it's next to the 2 historic Dallas Street houses. We tried to bring also the windows, the scale of the windows down as well, but we did not create doors there. Yeah. Yeah, and I think at that time, the design recommendation was not to replicate any historic row houses, but just to create a new building that has the same scale, with the same window scale, but not necessarily need to have a door. But that also, those are like the width of 2 row houses versus this one. It's a lot wider. It's like 5. So
Thank
that's,
you.
that's
I
the
was like,
clarification.
Thank you for your clarity. Commissioners, do you have any other comments?
So would it be fair to say that the recommendation as it was stated?
Yeah.
Thank you. Perhaps we are not recommending that there be door entries, or not, we're not recommending that there be.
Like the whole second sentence.
Yeah, strike that. We're saying that if there are doors, it would be nice if they were operable.
Yeah,
But
strike
we
the
are not
second.
asking to provide openings that look like doors. Is that fair?
So I think if we're finished with discussion, we can try to craft a motion. Yes. Is that what?
Well, based upon what you all said, if we scratch the second sentence, all we have is concept approval of
No, I
height,
think
mass.
it's concept approval of height, scale, and mass.
That's right. That's the
With
first sentence, yeah.
recommending the investigation of making the doors operable.
Rear. We just,
That Register Avenue.
Register
Register.
Okay.
and I would add and to incorporate comments on the Broadway facade, too many streets, from the previous hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. And Eric is just writing it all down so we can, when we read it off, we'll have it for the record. Are there any other commissioners that wish to comment? Okay. Are we ready to make a decision?
Can Eric read it?
Yeah, I'm just asking, are you ready? Just because after Eric reads it. Okay, Eric, here you go. Go right ahead.
All right. My reading glasses broke this morning, so
I've
I
got
might be doing
extras.
this on you. So it would be concept approval of height, massing, and scale with the condition to investigate making the doors operable on Register Street and to incorporate the motion from the previous hearing. And I don't know when that hearing was. Do you know when that hearing was, Eddie?
June 20, June.
I would specify for the Broadway facade, because, you know, obviously the rear is completely changed.
But there were also comments during that session on the south
Or south
and north
yeah,
facades.
So, not Register Street.
All right,
We
so,
don't need to talk about the things at the parking lot. And I know that there was conversation about the parking lot.
got it. So I'll just put in, and incorporate the motion from the June hearing regarding the Broadway facade. How's that?
Okay. That's good. All right. Eric, thank you. Do I have a motion to move forward?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
I did, who was second? Val, thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have 1024 Light Street, Federal Hill Historic District, the request to construct side addition and second story rear addition. The owner is Key Tech. The applicant is Quinn Evans, and the staff is Mr. Tariq.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon. And everyone. All right. Today, we are discussing 1024 Light Street. It is a request to construct a second-story side and rear addition. The address is 1024 Light Street in Federal Hill. The owner is Key Tech, and the applicant, the applicant and architect is Quinn Evans. It's okay. All right, so here's the site map for Federal Hill. Here is the vicinity map for Federal Hill and the location of the site. All right, here is the current location of the school, of the building, of the property at 1024 Light Street. Right. Here's a historic photo from the Maryland Historical Trust of the building when it was converted into a shoe store, and the storefronts were added to the school. This was initially named the public school number 15. This was the first public school in Federal Hill. This was later named public school number 17 afterwards, after this Civil War. Right. Here are the Sanborn maps. Background. This is the first application for this property, and the storefront was painted in the past in a high gloss paint, and that will be resolved in staff level. Here are the few of the photos. This is showing the west elevation from the rooftop, from the second floor. So there will be a rear addition placed at this location. Here is the location of the side elevation, side addition, and this is the south elevation. So this is where the side elevation will be placed. Here's the front elevation showing the new alterations to the storefront and the new commercial spaces that they accommodate. Here is a view from Pulteney Street showing the north elevation. And this is from the parking lot that is adjacent to Pulteney Street showing the west elevation. The second story addition will be placed on top of this roofing structure. Here are a few photos of the interior and exterior spaces and the fenestration that currently exists at the property. It's a photo map explaining where those photos were taken from. So the proposal is to construct a second-story rear addition. I gotta do it this way. And a rear addition. This will be curtain wall paneling, so it will be an aluminum paneling, mostly in glass fenestrations. So, yeah. All right, here's a rendering showing the curtain wall paneling system placed on the Light Street facade above the current storefront. Here's another looking from the northeast. As you can see here, you can see the rear addition, which will connect the two of Keytech's properties at the rear, and there will be a rooftop deck with a metal trellis above and cedar, yeah, metal and cedar trellis above. All right, here are the demolition plans showing the anticipated window openings that are to be altered to accommodate for the addition. Here are the proposed plans showing the new window openings as proposed after the retention, after these items are salvaged, stored in a safe location, and tagged for reinstallation. All right, as you can see in this section view, there are 7 windows that will be altered here on the south elevation. These will be converted to window openings. CHAP staff is asking to retain the windows at these locations, with the exception of one, which is the far rightmost window opening, which will be converted into a door opening to accommodate for the atrium and new egress for the new building. Staff applied sections 1.18. Oh my goodness. Staff has applied sections 1.18 alterations and additions to this. Yes, for this. Oh my goodness. 1.89 roof decks. 2.1 guiding principles for new design. 2.2 site design, and 2.3 scale and form. 2.45 roofs, and 2.51 doors and windows, and 2.52 materials. Sorry for all the ands. All right. So, as far as a recommendation, staff recommends the approval of the second story side and rear addition with the following conditions. This applicant comes back to staff for the paint selection at the storefront, the retention of the second story south elevation historic windows and historic window openings in their entirety, except at one location intended to become a door opening. The salvage brick. The brick is to be salvaged and stored in a safe location and tagged for reinstallation, if possible. Number 3, the retention of the existing Pulteney Street window opening. Louver. And 4, the final details are returned to CHAP staff. So, yes. Thank you, Commissioners.
Terry, thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Tyreek?
Jeez Louise.
Okay, before we get into the recommendations of this, we have any discussion among us?
Is there any other presentations?
No presentations. We don't have any public comment. Commissioners, any discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
just absorbing.
Okay. So we have no public comment. Tariq, thank you for your presentation. Go right ahead, Peter.
Well, I was looking at, I might have another question.
Go right ahead.
One moment.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay, so my questions would be, on that south facade. So the one window towards the front, having the sill lowered to become a door. And then I want to be clear that the window at the back, at the bump out, will also be lowered to become a door, and that a third opening gets cut through on the back facade of the main school building. And then I was kind of curious and just a little more clarification on the ground floor. You know, it says cut out brick infill. And looking at the elevations, it's hard to tell whether they're carrying those jams all the way to the floor. I mean, clearly in the one there's a door opening there, or whether they're going to maintain the original sill height. Do you have any clarification on that at all?
On which elevation?
On the south elevation, on the first floor where it says cut out brick infill on the demo plans.
It's a little easier to see in the section if
Yeah,
you
the
go
section
to
shows
sheet
it.
A301.
Yeah.
Right, so you're talking about these, correct?
Correct. Yeah, so they're clearly infilled presently. I guess my question is, you know, these first floor windows seem to be shorter and not coming all the way to the ground, but I can't really tell what's being shown here. I mean, we've got two obvious door openings with swing on them, but the other two I'm not sure.
The way I interpreted that is that the window opening was getting cut all the way down to the ground. Because it looks like it shows a infill window system there.
Ask a question.
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
We were talking about other, you know, and generally for other projects about rear addition manipulation, and this is kind of a side elevation of a historic building manipulation, I guess. Part of on the I guess it's on the property line, right? Because you're taking over the.
It's a
they're taking
street
over the house,
elevation.
right? So it is an elevation that's
said
going to
turn
be.
We're looking at the
Only
south.
the back, only the little part of the back where the little roof deck is a street elevation. Otherwise, it's along the side between the two buildings.
Well, there are modifications to this elevation,
slab.
which is
You got
on
the
Poultry Street.
photos of the
I
existing-
understand where the addition is,
the
but I'm
exterior.
saying there's still modifications on Poultney.
Oh, well, the section we were looking at isn't on Poultney, it's the other side.
I guess the windows that are going to be manipulated from the interior alley side, yeah. So I guess I just, this is an historic building,
Yes.
right? And that's a historic
It's the first school in this area,
And
public school in this area.
I mean, I don't know if it's okay to pose a question to the commission or to staff, just to go, you know, there's significant detail and significant architecturally detail and structure there that is going to be taken out for this new addition. I guess we were talking about the significance of a rear addition, a rear facade, but this is a side elevation that has a pretty significant historic elevation that's going to be manipulated quite substantially. I guess I just want to throw that out as a discussion point of, you know, is that how we?
Well, I mean, I've been in this property and I would say, you know, the sin has already been done. Like,
Oh, okay.
because
of the
what
ground
it's
level.
very confusing, but like, yeah, there's this ground floor infill piece on that south side.
Right.
And which you can see has like bathrooms and stuff in it now. And so, like, in a way, I think this perhaps is, I'm not like, there's not enough detail here to confirm this, but in a way, this could resolve some of those issues, because if you can in fact my remaining question is, how does the roof structure really fit between the tail ends of the gables and the rafters? I don't know that.
The section showing it below the tails.
Yeah, I saw that, but that's not a roof detail, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I
so
know.
I think it could still be pretty, not very sensitive, but the idea that you drop this roof that's like, that flashing detail is awesome. Like, there is
That doesn't
none.
work?
Right, I mean, I don't think that's very robust, but, you know, like, taking that out kind of, I think, frees the elevation and returns it
Right,
to
yeah.
something better. you know, then it's just, but you're moving that problem up, so I don't necessarily.
Weighing of sins and
Yeah, so I don't
balances
necessarily,
of
yeah,
things that
and
are
that
covered.
storefront that is
But this is
existing
where
is tough.
if we, you know, move forward with Terry's recommendation that the second floor windows are maintained as is, except where they need to do the doors, then I think that really solves that issue on the second floor, because now you're keeping the window openings and as is, and you're keeping the
It does.
windows.
But you have a
so-
10-foot wide roof that you're gonna have to drain, either mono pitch all the way to the back, or you're gonna have internal roof drains that are gonna drop down below. So I mean, like, technically speaking, there's a lot that can go wrong above the window head. But I still think it does reestablish the two-story facade into, you know, being, which is a good thing. I think it's, you know, what's tough on this building is that long-standing storefront on the front. And then you're like.
Which they're not touching. So.
Which you can't touch, you
Can't.
know, and, so,
I mean,
not in this phase maybe, but, yeah, so. anyway.
I mean, I think this could potentially be a huge improvement.
Yeah.
That building, I mean, to be able to get that facade back would be great.
It
And
looks like they're clearing out the second story, which is nice and big and open and all those
Absolutely.
things. You know, it's cleaning up a lot of damage.
So
Checks and balances, it's still gonna be more of an approval than, improvement than it is a.
Yeah, so okay, go ahead, Adam.
So the questions I would have, like the first two, if we're looking at that section again, the first two that are showing doors in the demo plans are already cut through openings, so I don't have any issues there. I want to know about the next two openings, just, I don't understand what they're doing there. The section again, of the south facade, whatever it is.
301?
It's not scrolling, so I don't know.
Yes.
First floor south facade, there are two that show doors that are existing doors, fine. The next two windows where it says alley 100, I want to know how they're treating those openings. I don't have any issues with what they're doing on the second floor. I think that all makes sense. I don't have any concerns about losing the louvered window or adding the door on the Pulteney Street side. I mean, that's clearly a 20th century addition of this building that doesn't make much sense. It doesn't bother me at all. The other question I had would just be the window sash themselves. They all look like replacements to me. I don't want to require them to keep them if they don't really want it. I guess I just don't care. We're not going to lose historic fabric there. But there is something to be said for keeping the look of window sash in place that someone could argue in either direction, I think. Those were my comments on what I've seen.
Oh, so you're down to, we aren't always so scattered.
Yeah.
You're down to.
I
keep
had two
the
other
windows,
things. I don't care about the window sash. Is kind of what I'm getting at. They look like replacement sash. I haven't seen them in person, but the
Because the
photos
fronts are for
are
doors.
very suspect. Well, if you look at photo 20, what photo was that? 20 something. Oh my gosh, I gotta scroll.
Lots of photos.
20. Where's the interior ones? There we go. Now we're getting into it. Okay, so photo. Oh no, I was very wrong. 74.
Oh man, that's not the other end.
So this is one of the compass head windows on the front, but it looks like an old piece of the interior stop is still in place with the mitered edges on the top head of the window. I mean, very frequently, 1850s, these sash are square sash with a compass head cut into the top sash, which is looking like what was here, and what's there now is an insert. On the exterior, you can see where it's got a separate top sill that's going over the original sub-sill. And then the side windows, like there's no interior stops. They're running on tracks. I mean, these are replacement windows.
Yeah, that's the front.
That's a replacement.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
all of
that's
them
the
in the whole-
front facade.
in the whole thing
This
are.
is the side.
You think that?
So anyway, long story short, I don't care about those sash very much. So if they
What was
want,
in the historic picture?
I mean,
Historic.
I think the
historic
the larger
70s,
issue that Terry was trying to get to is that the opening with the window frame needs to stay there, whether
Absolutely.
or not.
In the frame, absolutely. I mean, that's, I'm sure behind those window inserts are the original jams that should absolutely
Right,
stay in
because it
place.
looks like they look like they're in there.
Tariq, based on the comments from our commissioners and you've seen the application, is this something you can bring back to them and they can give us information as to the elevation or height or dealing with the windows or how they could be fixtured?
We can.
Yes.
No, I was just asking
Sure.
Tariq. Go
The
ahead.
applicant actually was a little uneasy with presenting this
Mhm.
month, but I encouraged them to do so,
Mhm.
to hear comments from commissioners.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
do we have anyone here from the client? Okay.
He's the architect.
Okay. Can we
Okay.
just ask the
Great.
yeah, just ask the question and it might solve it all.
Hi, Ethan Marchant, Quinn Evans. Yeah, our big intent is really to reactivate this alley as a connector piece to thread the buildings together. I think you've hit it on the head that the focus is to re-engage this full historic two-story facade. The lower level has been desecrated. It's been enclosed, it's covered with drywall, but there's big holes punched in it over the many chapters of this building. So we're intending to use this alley as the primary circulation to connect back to the McHenry Theater, which is a mid-block structure, which currently houses the headquarters at Key Tech. And as they expand into this space, this really becomes the thread that connects them from their entry on Cross Street and then to a new entry onto Light Street. So there will be that pedestrian connection through that then sponsors both of their buildings. As far as the windows go, there are 100% replica infills. If the frames are still there, I have not looked at that particular issue. We'd be completely willing to remove the frames. The sashes, I agree, are, in my opinion, not relevant. We would want to atmospherically connect the second floor into that interior now alley space, so that communication can happen. Verbal communication, visual communication between those spaces to create an open air connection. I hope that addresses your questions, and happy to answer any more.
Yeah. So just looking at the section view, so the two windows, sorry, I keep making everyone flip around. So these two are currently open, is that right?
Yes, there are large openings
And these are buried in the bathrooms.
We're assuming there's window openings there based
Yeah.
on the historic interpretation. That's all.
But
we know.
you don't actually know
But
if they're
I doubt
still
there's window
there
frames and or
Yeah,
sashes in there.
Yeah, because I
Um,
saw the brick infill in your photos.
Right.
But your intention would be to take those openings
To open up, so
forward.
the rooms now that
Gotcha.
happen into
Okay.
that space connect into the alley.
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Okay.
get there eventually.
Any other things you'd like to share?
No, I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Commissioners have any questions for? I'd have called you up. I didn't have any name on the sheet, so
No
thank you.
worries. I didn't sign in.
It's okay. It's quite all right. It's quite all right. Well, thank you for your comments.
And your name again, please?
Ethan Marchant.
Thank you. Say how you spell your last name, Mr. Marchant.
Marchant.
Got it. Thank you.
Page 60 of the staff report.
Before we continue, I want to put on the record that Sarah Langmead has excluded herself from this session. So I just want to make that for the record. And before we continue, are there any more comments before we get into recommendations or final approval? Go ahead, Ann.
I see you perfectly.
Yeah, I think we kind of got that alley thing hammered out. And then I was just going back to this, so obviously the Polteny street elevation has been manipulated over time. And so as I understand that the changes that are in this proposal are to take a louvered window, which was originally probably like a high hopper window, and erase it from the facade and then put in a new door. But that seems to be, it has a soldier course over the top of it and a sill that seems consistent with the rest of the.
Well, if you look at the back facade, so there's a narrower bump on the back that looks original, and it's got splayed jack arches, whereas this is a flat.
Yeah, but all the ones on that facade had flat arches.
Well, I think those are the cast iron ones that look.
We're looking at page 60 on your
Yeah,
report. but I-
On the staff report.
So we need to look at the color one, I think. So all the ones that I saw in the old building were splayed jack arches, and these were flat with what looks like a steel lintel under them.
Let me see.
So Ann, for my clarity, you guys are looking at what, not just back to the windows?
On the
now?
staff
Can
report,
we actually, can you pull it up on the screen?
So the
you have
commission-
the staff report. They're looking at the historic photo that's in the staff.
I think we
report.
can probably deduce the conversation. We can take the conversation if we just have an
the historic
elevation
photo here.
picture of Pulteney Street.
That would be fine.
So, because that's what it's about.
There, wait, there. Technology's not your friend today.
We are on
So
It's not.
they just don't show in this photo because they must be painted a dark color, but the lower windows on that facade have those same decorative
Yes,
iron
agreed.
lintels.
Agreed.
So what I'm looking at is
But the bump.
the little bump out guy is, I would assume, a 20th century physical plant edition would be my guess. If you look at the back facade where we've got
We'll even hear you.
the historic windows, they've got totally different. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that one little window is particularly significant.
Okay. I just want to be, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
You're talking about the window?
The one with
The
the
louver,
louver.
the proposed
the wee
door.
louver, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you can see on the back facade a clear transition from the old brick to the new brick. The windows are all treated different.
I would agree that the wee louver window is not significant.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we were having the whole conversation.
Okay.
If that's the easiest thing to call it.
Okay, all right.
Tariki, take us back to the recommendations. A lot of slides.
It was a big presentation.
Almost there.
Really big report.
You're getting a thumb workout today.
Okay, let me see. Is that the same one? Is that says that's the bill? That's a different. That's different. Yeah, that's different. That's
No,
No,
it's
that's
just
the
a
right
That's
one.
right. That's the
item
right
at the
one?
top. I
Yeah.
apologize.
okay. Good. Okay, I was looking at the bill. Number. Okay. Recommendation for 1024 Light Street, and we have 4 recommendations. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions: the applicant obtains approval for paint on storefront from CHAP staff, retention of the second story south elevation, historic windows and window openings in their entirety, except at one location intended to become a door opening, salvage, brick to salvage, store in a safe location, and tagged for reinstallation. Recommendation number 3, retention of the existing Pulteney Street window opening, and 4, final details to return to CHAP staff. Do I have a motion for this to move forward?
So I think we want to edit the recommendation. So I think we agreed to strike number 3.
Okay.
That is correct.
And then
Two
to
needs to be
clarify number 2, right.
So 2 on the second story south elevation, we are altering 2 windows into door openings.
Okay.
And I'll.
And Peter,
defer
while
to
you're talking, Eric, he's writing it down. So
Oh,
you're
yeah,
fine.
sorry.
Keep going. Keep going.
So I'd make that alteration. I don't know. What do you guys think about the window sash? I particularly don't care.
I would say that the,
Install them or don't install them?
Right. I don't know that I feel strong.
I mean, they're there right now, and with it being a 2-story, this might be a question for the design team, which is, with it being a 2-story space now, you have to have something in the opening. So if the windows aren't there, they're gonna have to have a railing or something. It's a 2-story space.
Oh, yeah, but it's above 32 inch, 36 inch, with the sills are
The
high.
sill, as
The
long as you
sills
keep
are
the
high.
sill. Okay. So, I mean, I agree. I don't think taking out the sash is a big deal as long as if there's the historic frame is retained. So that would say, instead of in their entirety, it would be the historic window frame and masonry opening. Is that the best way to say that?
I'd say retention of second-story south elevation window openings and frames,
Casings.
with the exception of 2 windows being converted to door openings.
We're saying 2 now because of the little.
There are
One on the
2
back.
on the plan. There's
Yeah.
2.
Okay, so one of them is being turned into a door opening.
Both are.
Both are.
Oh, there's gonna be 2.
Yeah.
There's 2 windows. It's just one's on the alley side and one's on the
Here's that
back.
little appendage
the little.
on the back.
And that's all on the second story?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you look at photo 4, you'll see the
Oh,
window.
we're looking at the corner of the.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the building
opposite end,
returns-
though.
Yeah.
Just think about this space. Presumably, all of the windows are missing that are in between, like that are walled up right now. The first floor is kind of like everything is in a sandwich. You don't know what's there. Although I think that they might be bricked in because.
Yeah, in one
So,
photo looked
so
like.
there, so, you know, then upstairs, do you want the windows to remain in place or allow them to take the windows out so that the first and second story read more similarly? Both which would just be holes in the wall.
Right.
Or is it?
Do we have an image for it so that we can?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
go
do.
to the,
We do.
go to the roof image, like where the roof flashing is, because that kind of shows the.
Photo 4, I think, is quite helpful.
There, go back, that right,
Oh,
well,
the corner one.
go one more down. Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
So these all have windows inside of them, right? So you can take that window out, or you can leave that window in, and then there's all of the frame around the perimeter. So on the bottom, all these pieces are gone. You just have this left, right? So that's pretty clean cut. But then up here, it's a matter of how much to keep.
So Catherine, what I'd like to do in reference to just design or understanding and how we should move forward, Eric, could you guide us, just giving us some just parameters as to how we can move forward with our decision here?
Yes.
Can I suggest that perhaps this CHAP board is not the forum to be resolving these architectural details? And it's quite appropriate that we've identified them, put that into the recommendation, but it's not a wise procedural process to be dealing with details like this.
We're reacting to the recommendation that was already.
So no, go ahead, Karen. Go ahead. Go right ahead, continue. Turn your mic on, make sure your mic's on too.
I think our recommendation should not be the product of a resolution by this board of these details. We have identified these problems, and they're quite appropriate, and they should be referred to the rest of the decision-making process. But good results do not come, in my judgment, from this kind of resolution. All these details are identified. Let's send them back to the staff for resolution and for closure. I think the problems are not acute, are difficult, or they may be difficult, but they're not acute. They can be resolved, but this is not the context in which to resolve them.
We were just trying to resolve the recommendation from the staff.
Yeah, staff is telling them they have to keep the windows.
No,
I don't think that
do.
we necessarily need to do that.
Well, let me say this, duly noted, Gary. Thank you for your comment. That's why I asked Eric to just let us know how we should navigate this conversation. So Eric, if you would continue.
Yeah, I just also just want to bring up where our jurisdiction lies. It lies in the exterior changes, and they could make an argument that the first floor is interior, and they could also make an argument that the second floor will be interior. Therefore, even talking about these windows is mute in terms of the CHAP purview.
Except that it's exterior now.
It's exterior now, yeah.
Exterior
That's,
right
I
now,
think that's
yeah.
what's
Yeah.
causing the, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's the challenge. So anyway, let's just strike the sashes and get rid of it.
Yeah, I think our point is they don't need to be kept in entirety.
Yeah,
And
openings and
the
frames.
sashes are
optional to be
They can figure that. If
or
they want to
kept,
keep them,
that
great.
can be
If not,
figured out.
And
Okay.
also, and
Go ahead,
also
Tyreek. Go right ahead.
editing number 3, instead of retention of the existing Pulteney Street opening, the replacement of the existing Pulteney Street window opening into a door opening would make it simpler.
I still think we're comfortable with just striking 3.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Eric, yes, if you could, there's some from the conversations, Eric wrote some things down. Go right ahead.
Yeah, let's see. This may be a little harder than the last one, but I have approved staff recommendation with the following amendments. And I have strike number 3, just delete it. And then on number 2, we say on second story south elevation, retain window openings, but for most, retain window openings and alter 2 window openings and a door openings.
That's it.
Retain
Sure.
window
And then
openings and
salve.
frames.
Yeah, I
Salve
think-
it, strike the second sentence. I think that's the cleanest.
So retain window openings and frames, period.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
end it, and they can take 2 windows and turn them into doors, and then that's it.
All right.
Good. Okay. Read it. That was read. Had a presentation. Do I have a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Let the minutes also reflect that Sarah Langmead had to recluse herself from this. Thank you, commissioners. All right.
Can
Thank
somebody
you.
go get Sarah?
Thank you for
Yes.
your patience.
Someone get Sarah. Thank you. Finally, on our agenda, we have 1920 Utah Place, Bolton Hill Historic District. The request is to construct a 3-story rear addition and basement egress windows on facade. The owner is Income One LLC. The applicant is Carballo Architecture LLC, and the staff is Ms. Lauren.
Thank you, commissioners. The property is located on Utah Place in the 1900 block. It actually, it's in the Bolton Hill Historic District. It's a little tough to see on this map because it also abuts the Madison Park Local Historic District. Here's the property outlined in red. It's located on the west side of Utah Place. It's a block and a half south of North Avenue. Bolton Hill retains a strong Victorian-era traditional row house character with relatively intact blocks of structures from the mid to late 19th century. The residential community encompasses approximately 170 acres, and the row house building type predominates in Bolton Hill, but is treated in a variety of ways. And you can see on this block, this building itself is relatively shallow, and then in terms of the rear depths of the buildings, the depths of the buildings on the lots is really varies in this block here. This is a not very helpful aerial view. It's a 3-story row house with an elevated basement. It's designed in a Victorian eclectic style that utilizes architectural language from several architectural styles. The facade is brick with a rusticated brownstone basement level and brownstone windowsills and lintels. There is decorative pressed brick detailing at the intermediate cornice above the raised first floor and the third floor windowsills, and a pattern of projecting and recessed brickwork around the first floor doorway and above the third floor. There is a front gabled wooden cornice, which is surmounted by a mansard roof with decorative roofing slates. First floor is 3 bays wide with brownstone stairs leading up to the original paired front doors. And all of the windows on the facade are aluminum replacement windows. When this building was constructed in the late 1800s, the rear of the building was just the full width of the lot. There was no rear L addition. And it featured a 2-story oriel bay on the rear elevation. By 1914, the house had a 1-story rear L addition and a 2nd-story addition, both of which survive today. You can see the building here in this photo. This is a view from Morris Street and Alley Street. And you can see it here again. Does this do? No.
Not a laser pointer, but
Oh, not a laser pointer. Well, I will describe what I'm trying to show here. The building is not the stuccoed wall. That is the party wall, or the wall for the property immediately to the south. Yes, thank you. It is the, yes, one-story brick rear L, the two-story frame addition. That is the rear of the parcel. And then these are some additional photos of the back. This is the first CHAP application for the property, and surprisingly, there are no CHAP applications or building permits for this property. The CHAP, our hard copy CHAP file there's a photo of the building from 1971, and that's it. So this is our first application. The property was sold through tax sale in early 2022. The proposal is to demolish the rear one-story L and second-floor rear addition on this 8-unit multifamily row house and construct a large 3-story addition that fills the width of the lot and covers all but the rear 18 feet of the lot, which will be for parking pad. And this proposal meets the OR zoning. These are the demolition plans that show the basement and the first floor, showing the removal of the rear L and the oriel bay. And again, this is just sort of a snapshot. I'm not going to show all of the floors. And this is the proposed construction plans for the same 2 floors. The new addition will add around 687 square feet on each floor of the building for a total of approximately 2,800 square feet. On the rear of the addition, the proposal includes a 3-story frame egress stair that is accessed from a rear frame porch. And this was a question that was asked in the briefing session, and I checked. The addition will extend 15 feet beyond the adjacent property to the south, that stuccoed wall that we saw in that photo. And then the stair tower adds an additional 10.5 feet in the depth. A parking pad for 2 vehicles will be added at the rear of the lot. And that will be 18 feet deep and the full width of the lot. On the top level of the egress stair, there will be a spiral staircase that will access a 19-foot wide by 15-foot deep rooftop deck located on the rear of the addition. And the rear addition will be clad with cementitious hardy siding and will have 1/1 wood windows. On the facade, the applicant proposes to remove 2 replacement basement windows and the carved stone sill to lengthen the window openings in order to accommodate basement egress windows. This will also entail the excavation of a 12-foot long, 4-foot wide, 18-inch deep concrete window well with a lip that's raised approximately 4 inches above grade. The only other proposal for the facade is to paint the woodwork, which meets CHAP guidelines and will be reviewed at staff level. Staff applied the following sections of the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines in reviewing this proposal: 1.7 windows, 1.8.10 roof decks, 1.17 alterations and additions, 2.1 guiding principles for new design, 2.2 site design, 2.3 scale and form, and 2.5 materials and detailing. The proposal includes lengthening the 2 basement window openings on the facade to install egress windows, which would also require the removal of a decorative stone sill. This aspect of the proposal does not comply with the design guidelines, which states, in most cases, do not alter the size, location, or shape of historic windows or window openings. Rooftop decks, direct that decks they are located to minimize the visibility, use compatible materials, minimize the appearance of railings, balusters, decking, keep roof decks simple in design, and provide access to the roof decks from the rear of the property. And this proposal meets all of those guidelines. And so staff finds that this complies with the design guidelines for roof decks. It will be visible from the rear alley, Morris Street, and due to the presence of a surface parking lot on the rear of the lot to the north of this parcel, it will also be visible from Pressman Street. However, it is staff's opinion that this roof deck complies with the guidelines because it is located on the rear of the building and will not be visible from Utah Place. I'm just going to list the alterations and additions guidelines. Staff finds that the proposed rear addition meets the guidelines because it is compatible with the existing building in massing, height, form, and scale. It's located on the rear of the building. The guidelines direct that additions be placed on a secondary elevation, and staff finds that it meets the guidelines. For the guiding principles for new design, it directs that new buildings should visually relate to the historic environment and respect the established design precedents in the immediate area, and avoid replicating historic styles. The proposed addition is a simple construction that is the full width of the lot, has fenestration only on the rear elevation. It will be distinguishable from the historic portion of the structure and does not replicate a historic style. For site design, the site design states that there should be retain established property line patterns, street and alley width, setbacks, primary and secondary building orientation, and landscape elements. For this one, there is a diversity in the building depths on this block, including some that are almost the full depth of the lot. And so staff finds that this does comply with that guideline. For scale and form, again, scale and form of the buildings must be compatible with the height and depth of surrounding buildings. Where there's variation of building height, the new building should generally relate to the predominant pattern. It does. New buildings must complement the massing of surrounding buildings, including proportions of walls to window openings, and respect the characteristic rhythm of existing buildings. With that, this doesn't quite do that. However, it is on the rear, and the rears of these buildings have seen a lot of alterations. So staff found that this met the design guidelines. For the doors and windows, design doors and windows to be compatible with placement, scale, type, and operation, and with the architectural character. It says of the new facade and surrounding buildings. This is a facade, but it is the rear facade. And staff found that while the proposed replacement of doors and windows on the rear elevation with 2 doors and 2 windows on each floor is not a typical fenestration pattern on row house rear elevations. Typically it's 1 door and 2 windows, or is more typical. Staff finds that this is acceptable. For materials, the applicant proposes to use wood 1/1 windows and full light doors on the rear elevation, which meets the guidelines for materials. Cementitious siding, notably hardy plank, is the proposed cladding for the rear addition, or hardy siding rather. And staff has approved cementitious siding for smaller rear additions and recommends approval of this cladding for the rear elevation. However, rear additions in Bolton Hill were historically masonry, not frame, and were often stuccoed, like the wall at the adjacent property at 1918 Utah Place. And so staff recommends that the 51-foot long side elevation, 3-story elevation, which doesn't have any windows, be clad in a 3-part stucco instead of the cementitious siding, because stucco is a more common treatment for cladding rear additions, particularly along property lines. The neighborhood did submit comments. The Bolton Hill Architectural Review Committee sent along a letter. They were not able to testify to you today, so I'm just going to summarize their comments, which I did upload on the website. They recommend disapproval of the alteration to the front basement windows. They expressed concern about cladding the large addition with horizontal siding instead of masonry, which is more common. They suggested studying the rear elevation to make it more cohesive, and stated that Bolton Hill is not a neighborhood of roof decks. Staff finds that the proposal largely complies with the CHAP guidelines, and the proposed new addition and roof deck meets the guidelines. Staff recommends that in order to more fully comply with the design guidelines, the north elevation of the addition should be clad with a 3-part stucco instead of cementitious siding. The one aspect of this proposal that does not meet the guidelines is the proposal to lengthen the basement window openings on the facade in order to install egress windows and a window well. The guidelines direct applicants not to change window openings in most cases. Several requests to add a basement entrance or extend basement window wells have been brought before the commission in recent years, and the requests that were approved by the commission were generally in cases where there were no other means of accommodating the egress on a rear or side elevation, particularly on buildings with full lot coverage, or on streets where there was an existing historic precedent of basement level egress on the facade. On the length of Utah Place and Bolton Hill, there aren't any basement level egress windows on the facade and only 2 historic basement level entrances. This property doesn't have full lot coverage, and the applicant is requesting to demolish the rear additions. Thus, there is an opportunity to accommodate the required egress toward the back of the building by altering the interior configuration and design of the new rear addition. Staff recommends disapproval of this request to alter the basement windows on the facade to install egress windows and advises that the applicant explore alternative design solutions. Staff recommends approval of the new rear addition and rooftop deck with a recommendation to clad the north elevation of the addition in stucco instead of cementitious siding in order to better comply with the design guidelines. And staff recommends disapproval of the proposed alterations to the front basement windows because they do not comply with the design guidelines. Thank you, commissioners. Any questions for me?
Lauren, thank you. You have any questions for Lauren? Go ahead, Cal.
Just a question about the front facade access to the basement?
Yes.
I heard you say there was no new proposed conditions like that, but there were 2 historic, is that right?
2 historic basement level entrances, so they were actually basement doors on the other side of the
Similar to
street.
this condition?
Not similar to
Oh,
this
okay.
condition. No, they weren't egress windows. It was actually like a door well.
Or the stoop or something.
So a proposal like that would be
There's-
unprecedented.
Yeah, it is unprecedented. Along Utah Place,
Understood.
Similarly, along Utah Place, do we know of any other window wells?
There are none. I looked, I walked the length of it. There are none.
Okay.
Can you clarify for me, is the entire first floor structure being demolished in order to raise the floor height?
That's going to be a question that the architect can address.
Okay.
Commissioners, do we have any other questions for Lauren? Okay, Lauren, thank you.
Thank you.
On our public sign-in sheet, we have Adam Carbello. Adam, you here? And Adam, when you get up, can you speak your full name for the record?
Hello, guys here. Adam Carballo, architect, Carballo Architecture. Thank you, Lauren, for that presentation. Just to answer Catherine's question, part of the proposal is to take the first floor joists and raise them 1 foot to provide adequate basement ceiling height. The existing basement does have 2 apartment units in it, but has a very minimal ceiling height that does not comply with current standards for ceiling height. So in lieu of underpinning, the proposal is to raise the interior floor joist by 1 foot.
What is the current ceiling height?
In the basement?
Mm-hmm.
It's 7'4" in, I think it's 7'4" in the rear, and then just under 7 foot in the front. So it's pretty minimal. Speaking about the front window well, we're proposing an 18-inch deep window well at the front, really so that we can comply with rescue opening sizes. We have explored a number of other alternatives to forego that request. It doesn't make or break our project, to be perfectly honest with you. But it would allow for proper rescue from the front of the building in that lower unit. The request about adding stucco on the north facade on the party wall side is totally acceptable, and have no objection to that. We're happy to include that as part of the revised drawings, and continue working at the staff level on those details.
So then, just to circle back around to the first floor question, so is the intention to relocate the existing structure up, or it's all being demolished and completely new structure installed? And then I'm looking at the section, it looks like basically that kind of front entry door vestibule, that is remaining the same, and then the change in level is being taken care of on the interior side. Is that correct?
That's correct. The vestibule, the threshold, the front door, nothing changes there. So that transition occurs within the building, and the existing floor joists most likely will just be removed and replaced. I don't believe they'll be able to salvage and reinstall them, but new floor joists will be set.
It would be very challenging.
It would be very challenging to do that, yes. So we'll actually have new floor joists set exactly 1 foot up with new beam pocket or new joist pockets, and that transition, as you can see at the entry vestibule, will not be altered at all. So that way we can retain the existing front doors, the existing vestibule doors, the existing vestibule floor, and that alteration will occur further into the building.
Adam, is there anything else you'd like to share with us for the project?
If anyone else has
Anyone have any questions?
I have
Oh,
a
go right ahead,
question.
Ann.
Okay. I have not done a lot of this type of work, so do you sorry, inside of there are these doors in all of the bedrooms that go out to the egress stair, and is it necessary that they all be doors, or could they be egress windows? Like,
They could absolutely be egress windows. The door was a request of our client to add those. The thought being if someone was utilizing the parking pad that we're providing, depending on which apartment or which tenant decides to lease the parking pad.
Which of the lucky two?
That's what I
There's
was
going to be
thinking.
two, but it could be a unit on the 3rd floor one year, a unit on the 2nd floor, and so forth. So it was to provide flexibility so that resident could, come from from the parking pad up, but also for trash removal as well. So that if you you could take your trash out to the back to the alley where it is collected, and you could go down the stairs. So
from an egress perspective, the front unit uses an existing stair that's been modified at the first floor for the new floor elevation.
That's correct.
And they don't need a second means of egress out of that unit in the front of the building.
There are rescue openings on the front of the building, but
okay. And then the unit at the rear uses the front door that's in the whatever, shares the front door shares the entry hall, and then so I'm lost as this presumably pressure-treated lumber staircase that's all on the back of the building. Is that required for egress, or they're exclusively for convenience? And then
it is required for egress because it's technically a 4-story building, so there are 2 means of egress. But it also plays double duty and provides.
But it is required.
It is required. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it provides accessibility to the rear of the property for trash removal and for access to the parking.
So then how are you taking care of your second means of egress for your four-floor front unit?
There is I believe there is a connection to the back of the property that So, I'm trying, we have,
I don't know. I just wanted to make sure, so just to clarify, I just was trying to make sure that the rear stair situation was a necessity, because it's not providing a second means of egress to the front units, so, was it required to have a second means of egress to the rear units? That was all.
I have to re-review my code analysis.
Okay,
to
that's
answer that
okay,
straight.
that's all right, it's not, I just.
And I'm under the code though, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you should have to have a front and rear entrance with, when you have multiple units, am I correct?
After a certain density and also height of building.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
Typically, Commissioner, once you hit the third floor.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay.
But this is fully sprinklered, so that changes some stuff.
Yeah.
Not the stair.
I don't know.
I am definitely concerned about these proposed rescue windows on the basement floor in the front. I understand the desire to have 2 bedrooms on the rear, the whole way up. However, I think that some sacrifices could be made, at least in the basement floor, to get a second means of egress out that does not entail modifying the front to basement windows, especially we understand that is common in some other neighborhoods in Baltimore, but because it's not common in Bolton Hill, I feel that is not the best way to handle that. So, but I guess there might be some other options to egress, especially the basement, out the rear facade. So were other schemes looked at for egressing those bottom apartments?
There are, and there is an option that we can exercise. This is our client's preferred method, but we have an alternative that doesn't require that egress window in the front of the building. So it doesn't make or break that unit or our project, but we wanted to present it. I know of one example in Bolton Hill, quite honestly, that we included in a project that is under construction right now on Park Avenue, that we utilize that condition. But we have received pushback from both CHAP as well as the Architecture Review Board. So it's not, like I said, it doesn't make or break our project. So.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other commissioners that have any questions for Adam? Okay, Adam, thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren, may we go to the recommendation page? Okay. Recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the new rear addition and rooftop deck with a recommendation to clad the north elevation of the addition in stucco instead of cementous siding in order to better comply with the design guidelines. Staff recommends disapproval of the proposed alterations to the front basement windows because it does not comply with design guidelines. That is my first time ever saying the word cementous.
Cementitious.
Cementitious. So thank you for
Microsoft Word also doesn't think that that's
right. Thank you for bearing with me on that. Right. It's my first time. Commissioners, do I have anyone who would like to place this recommendation forward?
No, I think we want to talk.
Discussion.
Okay.
We want to discuss.
You always
we
try
wanna
to skip
discuss.
past our discussion.
No, I just want to put that forth and then go to discuss. But go ahead. I appreciate it. Discussion.
I just think there's a question around height, scale, and massing. And if we go maybe 2 slides, the other, like this direction, go, yeah, right there. So you can see the facade of the house that's adjacent to it. That's the original facade. There were the Sanborn shows that there were the rest of the block was built out like this. They were short houses with rear bays. The bay is still present on this house, although camouflaged by the L and the other additions. And so while there are a variety of conditions on this block, I just think as a commission, we should talk about what is effectively taking the rear elevation off of the building and almost tripling the size of the building. Just for scale, I want you to understand that this room is about 50 feet long, and that's how long the blank wall is going to be facing this parking lot. That is how big this addition is. So it's quite substantial on a house that probably is about 45 feet deep in the first place, and the whole first floor has been moved up. So after we get to scale, I think I'd like to talk about exterior articulation of that mass, but I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that, because it is a radical departure from what defines the character of the neighborhood, which are rear gardens and these alleys, which are secondary, but are still character-defining features of a historic district.
I do feel that the addition is large. While I think the additions on the rear are common in Baltimore, in this neighborhood, etc., I do feel that this one is particularly large. I think the height is fairly in line. I'm not as concerned about that as I am about how far past the neighboring houses the addition is going. And so that's where, thinking about, sorry, I'm trying to turn my head and talk at the mic soon. Thinking about, looking at this photograph, you would not be able to see any of the ends of the houses that are to the right of this photo, because the addition would be coming out. You said I would think about 15 feet, Lauren, past the adjacent structure. So the adjacent structure that's kind of behind the telephone pole there, that you see the horizontal siding, you wouldn't see that. That's how far out it would be. Now, while that's not a tremendous difference from that direction, the direction that we're standing, that is a very large difference, as Commissioner Powell was saying. So I am concerned with how large it is. I do appreciate the client not asking for an increase in the amount of units, because that would definitely be a challenge with density and zoning and all those other good things. But I do still feel that retaining 8 units and needing to add on so much space is questionable to me.
Does the proposed size of the building meet zoning and setback requirements?
Yes, this property is zoned OR1, which allows full lot coverage.
That's what, my experience in the OR1 district is because they're creating a mix of uses and higher density along Utah Street and respecting the kind of different character of it.
Adam, come to the front. Make sure the mic's on. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Yep.
I guess to address the comment about adding space, the existing units are relatively small. They're studios. They're, fairly cramped. This was affording an opportunity to provide 1 and 2 bedroom units that had real living rooms, real kitchens, and provide a much better quality of space for the residents of that building. I also would note that this building is middle of block. It is true that to the north that you see the parking lot, the surface parking lot. That may not be a surface parking lot forever. And it's not an end unit where it is visible from the alley. However, being middle of block, the properties to the north could, in theory, be built out with rear additions. The properties to the south, as Lauren testified, have a variety of different sort of lengths of building. Some of them are full lot coverage already.
I mean, I guess I feel like that if this were on the other side of Utah Street in a more owner-occupied block, that there would be a completely different reaction by the public. And so that is like, do we just, I don't think it's a healthy precedent. And it feels like maybe it's just that there are more rental properties on that side of the block, and that's why we aren't hearing about it. Commodious living rooms. I mean, like, there's no natural light in this unit except for in the bedrooms, which the bedrooms do get just a walk-in closet, a double vanity in the primary bathroom, and 2 windows. But the living room gets 0 windows. Not under our control, but it's the whole thing is a little topsy-turvy, and I'm not real. It's just strange, and to take away the essential characteristics and qualities of the neighborhood to create something that feels so like you're really squeezing everything out of this lot that you can, which is not really the precedent, not really the character of that neighborhood. So if everybody's comfortable with it, we can move on.
Are there any other commissioners who would like to share comment?
But I think so, but I think, Adam, thank you for answering our questions. So
thank you.
you can have a seat.
Yeah, you have anything you'd like to say? Catherine?
I agree with Ann. And while certainly other properties could build out deeper, they would also be subject to coming forward to this commission. And we've had a lot of discussions about the precedent and feelings we want to set and things like that. And I would also be concerned because if the same aspect were to be applied on the other side of the street, it would be, I think, a much bigger outcry from the neighborhood. So I tend to agree with you. I also agree with the staff recommendation about the front window wells. So I think there's more exploring that can be done there, which the architect has already mentioned. There are some other possibilities there. And I understand the convenience factor of having a door at the rear of all of those. I'm not sure that it's necessary to have it for every single bedroom on the rear facade. If there's one unit back there, which is what it appears like to me on most of the floors, I don't think both of those bedrooms need a door to the exterior. That would give us a little bit more of the traditional layout feeling if you have a single door and then 3 windows. So I would also bring that forward.
If I can just comment about the comment about the size of the extension and how it's going to be this sheer surface. So I'm looking at the street view. You can't see in the photo, but opposite on the other side of the alley, there's that straight, just large surface. So I feel like maybe if across the alley, if it was articulated the same way, it would make more of a difference. But since you have that large facade already, I feel like it's already.
It's a little hard because that is outside of the historic district. So the way the historic district went is they grabbed both sides of Utah Street to preserve Utah Street's character, and then they mostly left what's on the other side of the neighborhood. So I think that the problem is we're setting precedent within the historic district. That's why. I mean, yes, that's a unique condition, but we're still setting precedent for almost 0 lot line construction on the OR side of Bolton Hill.
I was just going to suggest one of the ways that we would move forward, and in previous commissions, would if one of you two would like to make a motion to disapprove massing, that would be a way to get it up or down vote.
Lauren, can you go back to your...
Kip, you had a question? I'm sorry.
I just have one question real quick.
Go right ahead.
Is this for final approval or concept approval? Or just everything?
Yeah, I was suggesting final because, the materials, et cetera, were provided and
But this,
gen-
and this is
generally
the first time
acceptable.
it came here, right?
This is, yeah. Mhm.
And as you said, Lauren, you said it's the extension, well, it meets the code guidelines, you said, for the rear.
It does.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Because of the OR.
Yeah, but as we have all experience with historic projects, just because by right says you can in the zoning doesn't mean it's a good idea with the historic building.
I got.
Someone had a comment. Oh, go ahead, K-Pop.
Well, I was just curious about, thinking about how we proceed into like a recommendation. I'm asking a question. Is it, like maybe there's split views here. I don't know. I probably, I'm gearing on the side. I'm just gonna, I would recommend going with staff approval and moving forward. But there's some stuff on the table that's that are details that want to be addressed. And I guess the question is it a could that be like, yes, there's a recommendation to go with a recommendation with additional considerations, or that it's or is it to be worked with CHAP staff potentially, or is it like, no, this is like not gonna, like, we don't like where the massing's going, so then all the other stuff.
My sense is that there's not enough commission support to reject the massing. So
Oh, I
I
see.
would craft nobody else seems to be concerned about it, so.
Or they're just being very quiet because they're half asleep. I mean,
No, we're
that's-
sitting here looking
Oh,
at
damn.
different things.
Yeah, I mean, just because we're not talking doesn't mean we're not paying attention. We are looking at other
Kind of split. 'Cause
concepts
if-
on here.
Originally, I was definitely feeling like I was okay with the staff recommendation. Then you started pointing out that this would be maybe 15 feet beyond, I guess, the one that's right next to it. Not the short one, but the one on the
yeah,
other
the
side.
other side.
The wall is this long.
And so I'm looking at an aerial that shows a bunch of the houses on that street that do show a few of them that stick out that far. And so I'm kind of,
So Commissioner K, can you share, so you're saying you have an aerial view that shows other houses that mimic
Yeah, it's
what?
At Google Maps.
Wow, gotcha.
So basically, there are
No,
two
it's not-
actions, like.
this
we
is
can-
a Pictometry or Connect Explorer. I don't know.
Okay.
Different.
It's not Google Maps.
It's not Google Maps.
It's not Google Maps, okay.
But
Doing secret stuff.
Secret stuff that we can't see.
well, I would show. I mean, I'm happy to show.
Yeah, no,
whoever
she's
can see
just-
it.
But your point,
It's just stuff that I can access
Okay.
because of being at DHCD. But anyways, there's like one that comes out here, one back here.
Because those are a different group of houses, and so this was a.
I mean, they look like they were additions too.
They were
probably.
additions, but they were like substantially different probably in size because the way
They
that
also
the
have
alley used to be.
windows on the sides, and so we were trying to figure out.
but my question
How they were
is,
able to have
I'm
those
sorry, Kate, go
Yeah,
ahead.
see,
I'm sorry,
there's
Kate, go
the
ahead.
Sanborn, and you can see that the first,
Oh, they
this
were
one
already-
north were all the same at that
Mhm.
alley kink, and this just happens to have that long block. And so it was a short house with its friends to the north,
Right.
3 of which have been demolished. And then the houses to the south were deeper lots and longer houses
That's why they stick
historically.
out more, because
Yeah.
they're historically like that.
Yeah.
And there's a, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That does help understand it a little
I
better.
mean, that's just the origin of it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not, so.
What's
um,
getting me caught up is that I don't know if, I agree that building out in this mass is potentially detrimental to the block and the area, but I don't know if that's our purview.
Well,
And-
that's what we discussed at the
yeah.
pre-meeting, and I think it
And
can
the
be.
elimination of, taking up the whole block and not having a light well like the other properties that are extending back do, and therefore you're leaving, as you said, windowless living rooms, big though they may be. I don't like it as a precedent, but I'm not sure if it's, I'm trying to figure out what's in our.
I mean, I think it's within our
court.
purview, because it's block scale and massing.
Yeah, I would absolutely, the size of that is absolutely in our purview. We review every exterior change, and size, height, massing is something that we want to look at, and sort of the patterns of the sites in Bolton Hill are very important too. So if we choose to disapprove this current size, then we have our justifications through our guidelines.
Well, and also, Sarah, you brought up, if we'd like the kind of layout to explore in L, which is very common in the layouts for the longer houses, to give you some options for light further up on the building, further in, I guess. You know, that's something that we could recommend as well.
Yeah, so that it doesn't go right up against the lot line, so you could put some windows.
Yeah, and there are certain, you know, code restrictions on within certain parameters of, you know,
Windows.
Yeah, no, you can't put windows
openings
right on the
and,
lot line.
yeah, so, but there are still some options and flexibility there that,
Especially on the sprinkler.
right, right.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I could craft a motion.
Go for it, Ann. I think we're all gonna.
Eric is,
We'll get a dicey vote. if
Eric is
nothing
right.
else. So I would like to make a motion that would be approval of the roof deck.
Oh, that's easy.
Disapproval, I'm just trying to keep it, the sentence structure logical, sorry. Disapproval of the rear addition as proposed. And disapproval of the egress windows on the Utah Street side. Then we can offer recommendations for clarity if that would be helpful.
How does that work?
This,
when
this
you-
also might be, you know, one of those instances where we offer a interim.
Well, what we would say is, I wouldn't do that. I would say, you know, consider revising the massing of the addition.
Eric,
Considering historic building patterns in Bolton Hill.
Eric, as a commission, are we able to give like the length or suggest the length? Or we not? Or that's not our purview.
I would say the best thing would be to ask for an addition of a smaller
Yeah.
addition.
Okay.
I don't think if we started adding numbers to it, because
Yeah.
that gets a little bit too much. We don't know what the
Right.
numbers are all tied to the design.
Yeah, that's why I asked that, because I didn't want to get into a whole numbers thing if that's not our
But you
purview.
can study precedent in the neighborhood.
Can
to
I
look
ask a
for things.
question?
Of course, Nicole, go ahead.
The staff made a recommendation for approval. What was your reason for approval?
Sure. My reason for approval was given that that block did have, you know, other lots that were of, you know, of comparable depth and lot coverage. It was and was allowable under the zoning, which, you know, is and I know again, yes, CHAP doesn't have to allow maximum usage. However, given that pattern, you know, I thought that it would be fine in terms of that depth. So, yes.
Look, I just have one question. I'm just trying to figure out, will this be the first house there that would have that length in the exterior, or are there others that have done this already?
Yeah, so corner lots typically, the corner properties are typically full lot coverage because of course they can take advantage of the side additions.
But this isn't a corner.
But this isn't a corner, but I would say on the rears, I think what does make this different from the others, sorry, I'm just gonna try to go back to an image that shows.
Hey, that map was.
Yeah, the map was good, yep. Sorry, just gotta get back to it.
Not just Sanborn, but a real map.
Here we go. So you can see here, the rest of the houses though, that do have greater depth, they do have those light wells. So they don't cover the full width of the lot, even though they cover a deeper length. So if the commission felt that a revision to allow for, you know, light wells as a more predominant pattern, perhaps the depth isn't, I don't know.
No, I appreciate that. Go ahead.
That's why I was keeping it simple intentionally, which was reject the proposed massing, go back, it's too big, go back and look at neighborhood for precedent. The ultimate design solution should come from the architect.
Right. I just wanted to just get that clarity because ironically, I have seen corner houses, as we
That's
can see,
correct.
that
That's
have the
correct.
length.
This is not a
But
corner.
this isn't. And then I'm seeing in the middle, there's one that has length, but
But it has the light wells that they were talking about.
yeah. So this map is helpful.
And historically was a longer house,
Was a bigger house.
bigger house.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that clarity.
Do you want me to read back the motion on the table, on the floor?
Yes, please.
All right, it is approve roof deck, disapprove rear addition as proposed, disapprove egress windows on Utah Street facade, and consider revising the massing of the addition to better replicate the president of the neighborhood.
Quick question. Oh, okay, Powell, you had a
What if you're, oh yeah, I guess I'm just, as one voter, like, if you're okay with it, you know, you agree with, you're gonna vote yes to some of those and some you don't, what do you do? What do you want us to do?
That's the whole motion on the
Well,
floor.
no, then you would
So
vote no
you
and
would
then
vote
do
no.
another motion if
Right,
it doesn't
do another
pass.
motion.
Okay.
Okay.
In that respect, could we perhaps have a vote on the accepting a recommendation of the staff? And if that
where that
passes, then that passes.
Well, right
But
now,
assuming that
there's a
probably will
motion on
not
the
in
floor.
any significant way.
You gotta vote on the motion on the floor first, and then you
But-
vote on that.
Yes, but vote on the motion on the floor first would be
And so
my
this,
preference.
so Gary, this is in reference to, of course, if we have commissioners who are for the first recommendation, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, correction.
But nobody moved that, so first we have to vote on the motion that was moved.
No, Ann
Motion.
has
That was on the
made a
floor.
motion.
Right.
Okay,
I will second it, because no one's seconded it yet. And maybe we just need to make sure that we ask for yays and nays, both, rather than just, a lot of times we're unanimous, and maybe we're not. this
I could
time.
call everyone.
Can I ask a general question? Sorry, as like probably the newest commissioner on here. I just find it interesting that this is a historic, like the boundary of a historic district that abuts a not historic district. So I just was curious if there's general guidance on how we treat the boundaries and how we respond to the surrounding context. Is there any guidance for that? We just sort of treat the historic district in isolation?
Well, because precedent can be leveraged in
other areas
in
of the
other
district.
areas.
Okay, I just wanted to understand how that operated.
great question.
All right, going in alphabetical order, Nicole Battle.
Reread, please.
Approve roof deck, disapprove rear addition as proposed, disapprove egress windows on Utah Street facade, and consider revising massing of addition to better replicate the president of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Jill Dennis,
Yay.
Kate Edwards,
Yay.
Catherine Good,
Yay.
Sarah Langmead,
It's tough.
It's all good.
Yay.
Kapow Lynn,
Nay.
Peter Merle,
Nay.
Ann Powell,
Yay.
Garrett Power,
Nay.
Gary Rodwell,
Yay.
Myra Mendeley. All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yays. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 nays, 1 absent.
Does the chair have to vote to, or is it?
No,
carried?
because there's no
It
tiebreaker.
carries.
It's not,
There's no
it's not,
tie.
it's not
It's
even.
not a tiebreaker, so the motion passes.
So now do we look at the whole recommendation and we have to vote on that as we just
No,
mentioned?
no, that's
Gotcha.
it. That's
Okay,
it.
good. All right, let me hit the gavel.